Good afternoon, everybody. This is the Wednesday, March 30th hearing of the Assembly Committee on Utilities and Commerce. We do not quite have enough for a quorum yet, but we are going to start as a subcommittee and allow authors to present. And the first author who signed in is the illustrious Doss Williams. Doss, the floor is yours. Or Mr. Williams, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Before I begin my presentation, I just want to accept all the committee amendments. They're usually stellar in this committee. AB 2168 codifies several recommendations drafted in an audit of the CPUC by the California State's Auditor's Office. These changes will protect ratepayers by ensuring that the transactions recorded in balancing accounts are for allowable purposes and are supported by appropriate documentation. First, the bill will require that the CPUC to post reports of inspections and audits and other pertinent information on its internet website. It does delete the requirement that the CPUC furnish reports of its utility inspections and audits to the State Board of Equalization, but that's because they don't want the reports anymore. They already have internal processes to deal with it. And finally, the bill will allow the PUC to develop a risk-based approach to reviewing of all balancing accounts periodically. I have our sponsor here to testify in support of the measure. I think you know him, Mr. Sullivan, the Executive Director of the PUC.
Let's go to your first witness in support.
I want to thank all members of the committee for considering this bill, and particularly to thank Assemblymember Williams for introducing this bill on our behalf. This bill is sponsored by the Commission. It has unanimous support of all of the commissioners. I believe that this bill will be immensely helpful. The Commission is in the process of trying to reestablish and solidify public trust and confidence, and this reform bill will help us to do that by requiring that we follow best practices. The Commission has been working to instill within all employees support for both accountability and open communications by requiring that we post the results of our audits on the website. This piece of legislation will do both. Second of all, the requirement that we take an audit approach that is risk-based is one we have already implemented, and we find it very supportive that will be tied by law to this practice. So we fully support this bill, and we wish to thank you for your consideration.
Terrific. Thank you, sir. Are there any other witnesses in support? Public comment in support. Are there witnesses in opposition? Seeing none. Let's open it up for questions or comments from this panel. Seeing none. No, we don't have a quorum yet. So as soon as we establish a quorum, Mr. Williams, we will take a vote on your bill.
And I appreciate the sentiment, Mr. Patterson.
But you can close if you'd like.
Just respectfully ask for your aye vote. I think this is in step with our efforts to provide public accountability at the PUC.
Which this committee supports wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty. We have our next author, Mr. Chu. Welcome.
Good afternoon, colleagues, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your consideration of AB 1574, which would help to reduce the number of tour buses operating without the knowledge of the relevant state regulating agency. At the outset, I want to accept the amendment suggested by the committee. Thank committee staff for your excellent work. Currently, our tour bus regulation and inspection program is not working, which is endangering drivers, passengers, pedestrians, and cyclists on our roads. The California PUC has regulatory oversight over the industry. At the moment, there are 12,600 buses registered with them, even though there are over 81,000 registered buses under the DMV. The industry estimates there are over 30,000 tour buses that operate in our state, and that means there are over 17,000 buses operating without any oversight and potentially endangering residents on our roads. Last fall, my district saw this danger firsthand when a tour bus crashed in San Francisco's Union Square, injuring 20 people. including passengers, pedestrians, and cyclists. The investigation of the collision revealed that the bus was a so-called ghost bus, which means that the PUC, the regulating agency, didn't know that the bus was in the company's fleet, hadn't required any inspections. There was a post-accident audit that found multiple violations and failures. The incident highlighted a significant hole in oversight of the industry. This confirmed the results of another audit by the California State Auditor of the CPUC that showed that the Commission had failed to adequately ensure transportation safety. In addition to registering with the PUC, tour buses are supposed to be registered with the DMV, but the DMV is not required to share that information with the PUC, which means that the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. Our solution, AB 1574, is very simple. It requires the DMV to let the PUC know when a bus is registered, and it requires the PUC to continually provide feedback to the DMV if new buses are being registered. Our bill is about accountability, making sure that our state bureaucracies are talking to each other. It's also about public safety so that our residents are safe on the streets of California. So with that, again, thank you for your consideration, and I'd like to turn it over.
Sounds good. Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman, members, Josh Panay on behalf of the California Bus Association. We'd like to support the author's bill. We think this provision that makes it accountable from the DMV to the PUC is very important. There is one provision that we had talked to the author about, and that was the provision between when it comes into newly registered vehicles, and we'd like to keep that dialogue going, and I understand the author is looking at that for the Transportation Committee. I will say we did think back on a piece of legislation that the California Bus Association sponsored and supported by Assemblyman Dave Jones, and it was called the One Strike Law. And it basically said if you're an operator and you violate certain provisions of the act, you are revoked. The commission shall revoke your permit to operate. So we'd like to talk to the author because there is one glitch in that law now that you could apparently have a DMV registration, not a PUC registration for the vehicle, and that PUC registration isn't within this one strike bill that we passed with let's see, Chapter 248 by Assemblyman Jones, 636 of 2009 statutes. So we'd like to make that recommendation to the committee and the author.
Terrific. Thank you. Next witness.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gatto and Assembly Utilities Committee. I'm Dan Eisentrager. I'm a Regional Vice President for Coach USA and Megabus. We operate quite a few buses in the state of California and throughout North America. As a longtime member of California Bus Association, we've always advocated safety as our number one priority for any transportation companies, whether they're providing passenger service or delivery service. AB 1574 is endeavoring to close a gap in how the state registers commercial vehicles and then shares that information with our agencies and gives them that type of information. We were very thankful when we were starting roadside inspections years ago that a bill also enabled the CHP to have DMV information at the roadside inspection, which helped tremendously. So we support his current effort to ensure that the DMV notifies the PUC of newly registered buses in the state of California. Just so you know, currently the CPUC Passenger Carry Equipment Statement Form PL 664 is used by us as carriers to add and subtract vehicles from our fleet listing. This is with the PUC only, not with the DMV. The bill is requiring the Department of the California Highway Patrol to conduct a safety inspection before putting the vehicle into revenue service. The CBA would be guided by the CHP to determine whether the department believes that each vehicle added to the fleet should be inspected before being put into service. And that's where we've discussed it with Senator Hill on that issue, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve that with him in that bill and Assemblyman Chu. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair and members, Greg Cook, representing the Greater California Livery Association. We're in support of this bill. It accomplishes two things. It encourages communication between the DMV and the CPUC, and it expands safety for the traveling public in California. We're in strong support of the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there public comment in support?
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Karen Lang on behalf of Mayor Edwin Lee and the City and County of San Francisco. I'm so sorry we didn't get a letter into the committee. We're working on it. We'll get you one. But in the meantime, we just wanted to make sure that you knew that the Mayor of San Francisco supported his bill. Thank you.
Terrific. Are there witnesses in opposition? Okay, what we're going to do real quick before we go to questions or comments from the panel, we're going to establish a quorum. So, Madam Secretary, please.
Gatto.
Here.
Patterson. Chavez. Here. Burke. Chavez. Daly. Eggman. Not here. Christina Garcia. Here. Eduardo Garcia. Hadley. Here. Roger Hernandez. Obernolte. Here. Quirk.
Here.
Santiago. Ting. Williams.
Wonderful. A quorum is present. Now we'll entertain questions or comments about your bill. Yes, Mr. Hadley.
Mr. Chu, thank you for the bill. I have one question. Does every vehicle in this class that gets registered with the DMV, is it automatically subject to safety inspections, or is there a certain class of? Is it the nature of the vehicle? Is it the class of the registration? Or will some of the vehicles that are referred from the DMV to the PUC not be subject to an inspection regime? We're just improving communication between the two agencies.
So the idea is if you are a tour bus, you have to register with the PUC, and then you are subject to safety inspections. But we have a lot of buses that are simply registering with the DMV. That information is not getting over to the CPUC. So those buses are the so-called ghost buses that we're talking about.
Right.
So it's not the DMV itself that would be requiring the safety inspection. It's those buses that get referred to the CPUC that would then come under safety inspection requirements.
Okay, that part I got. But will there be registrations referred from the DMV to the PUC where the PUC says, thank you for that information, this bus is not providing a service that is subject to our safety inspection?
The idea is that the CPUC would take that information and the tour bus should be registering with the CPUC and going through the registration process and the inspection process. And if they're not, then they would not be legitimately a tour bus providing those services in the state. Does that answer your question?
We're not broadening the inspection regime.
Correct, we are
not. We're just giving the PUC information to make sure that they're at least aware of all the buses.
There's an entire category. We think right now there are a little less than 13,000 buses that are under the tour bus CPUC regime. It probably should be closer to 30,000. So we're not broadening the requirements of when a bus would be inspected. We're simply saying if you're a tour bus operating and offering tour bus services, you need to be under the jurisdiction of the CPUC subject to the current rules.
Right.
So the answer is we're not expanding the requirements. We're simply capturing everyone who should be in that universe.
Thank you.
Terrific. Are there any other questions or comments?
Move the bill.
We have a motion and a second. Would you like to close?
I just, again, want to thank your consideration on a measure that we think will ensure full inspections and help to eliminate so-called ghost buses to ensure that residents and tourists visiting California don't become public safety victims of regulatory loopholes, and I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Terrific. And I just want to thank you for your hard work on this bill and your staff and your wonderful fellow. I know they did a really great job in this bill, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended in the committee analysis and re-refer to the Transportation Committee. Gatto.
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Patterson.
Aye.
Patterson, aye. Burke. Chavez.
Aye.
Chavez, aye. Daly.
Aye.
Daly, aye. Eggman. Christina Garcia.
Aye.
Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia. Hadley.
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Roger Hernandez. Obernolte.
Aye.
Obernolte, aye. Quirk.
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago. Ting. Williams.
Terrific. So 1574 has passed, but we'll hold the roll open.
Thank you,
Thank you very
Congress.
much. Okay, next we have, looks like Mr. Wood, and Mr. Wood is here to present Assembly Bill 1923.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. First of all, I'd like to begin by accepting the committee's amendments that are before you.
Thank you.
AB 1923 will allow biomass facilities to be eligible for the renewable feed-in tariff if it has a nameplate generating capacity of up to 5 megawatts, but will only export a maximum of 3 megawatts of energy. Biomass has played a significant role in Humboldt County, where it provides about 30% of the North Coast's energy. In my district, biomass facilities produce energy by burning combustible waste, which is typically made up of scraps from mills, construction areas, and green waste collected from residences and businesses. Humboldt County is a prime area of sawmilling activity. The waste that's already generated generates much-needed biomass energy. However, the current regulations make it cost-prohibitive to invest in additional renewable bioenergy. Generators under 5 megawatts, in particular 3 megawatt generators, are not common and are extremely expensive to purchase. Indeed, it's actually less expensive to purchase a 5 megawatt generator than a 3 megawatt generator, which is the reason for bringing the bill forward. It makes it difficult for small biomass investors to budget when determining the cost of opening a facility. In Humboldt County, the threat of losing biomass facilities will be impactful to my district, as the plants have provided high-quality employment in the economically depressed rural areas, and the current regulations make it cost-prohibitive to invest in this renewable energy. Biomass is carbon neutral, a renewable resource that can be used to generate energy with the potential to offset fossil fuel use. This is what we, as a state, have been working towards to lower our greenhouse gas emissions. Governor Brown issued a proclamation of a state of emergency in October of last year on the tree mortality crisis. In the proclamation, the governor recognizes biomass's importance to the issue by stating that every biomass facility in the state needs to be operational and is a piece of the solution to the tree mortality crisis. AB 1923 dovetails nicely with the governor's proclamation by allowing small biomass facilities to use a 5 megawatt generator to operate their biomass facilities and be eligible for the renewable feed-in tariff program if the 5 megawatt generator will only export a maximum of 3 megawatts of energy. Here in support with me today, Jana Valahovic, the Forest Advisor for County of Humboldt, and Del Nort, and Karen Lang is also here, and Peter, excuse me. Thank you. We've got it. We have a.
Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's go to your witnesses in support.
Thank you, Assemblymember. Chairman Gatto, committee members, I appreciate the opportunity to be here and to speak on AB 1923. My name is Jana Valakovic, and for the last 16 years, I've served as the Forest Advisor for the University of California Cooperative Extension Program in Humboldt and Del Norte counties. For those who don't know, cooperative extension is founded in a partnership between the counties and the universities, so as a result, I wear two hats. Today, I'm representing the sponsor, the County of Humboldt, as I am a department head in the county. It's my perspective that to incentivize forest stewardship requires market availability for forest products. When there are forest product markets, people take better care of their forests because they know there's an economic return for stewardship. In the North Coast, in the Assemblymember's district, having a large number of low-value tan oak trees has challenged us. As a result, there is more than an abundant supply of tan oak. In fact, our forests are choked and overcrowded with this species because of a lack of markets. I come with actually a very positive story. 2 years ago in my job, I was fortunate to receive a phone call from a gentleman named Jim Litherland, who is from Oregon Forest Products. And he came to me with the idea to build a new mill and a new paradigm for tan oak. He is interested in developing a flooring manufacturing facility based on producing laminate flooring using the Forest Stewardship Council certification system and the logs that are abundantly produced in Humboldt County under that system, producing a green, formaldehyde-free product. He's offering Humboldt County 100 living wage jobs and a value-added business to be developed in the footprint of an old mill site. I don't get those phone calls very often. It was very exciting. So the problem for Mr. Litherland is that part of the flooring manufacturing process, there'll be large sections of the tree that cannot be utilized in that manufacturing process. So what does he do with those mill residuals, as we call them? We don't have the answer. And most commonly, mill residues are sent to bioenergy facilities and are burned to produce power. But in Humboldt County, while we have 3 biomass facilities, all 3 are in serious trouble because of the loss of energy procurement contracts with their investor-owned utilities. But that's a separate issue. If that was solved, we wouldn't be here today. But because of the uncertainty in the bioenergy markets, Mr. Litherland and I, in combination with Peter Tittman here, who I'll introduce in a moment, started to explore SB 1122. And with that, his plans for his plant evolved to include an entirely electric-based facility, meaning that he would eliminate diesel power and all the diesel power so that we could be using electric equipment to move logs around and creating a much quieter, less polluting program. While at first glance that appeared to be a good idea, Mr. Litherland discovered a very significant economic problem. Under SB 1122, all projects are limited to a 3-megawatt generator. That seemed relatively easy at first. So he went and priced a 3-megawatt generator at the cost of $23.5 million. That's the going market for him. That's almost as much as an entire manufacturing facility would cost. So no generator. So the used generator market is about $13.5 million, and that's about half the cost. So Mr. Litherland is not alone in these challenges. His experiences are shared with other regional investors looking to enter the manufacturing and energy markets in Assemblymember Wood's district and throughout California. And in conclusion, AB 1923 will essentially leave SB 1122 untouched, but will allow for on-site use of energy and retain the 3-megawatt energy export cap. This serves significantly to save costs both to the developer and taxpayers.
Terrific. Thank you very much. And I'll just gently remind the other witnesses that the bill has been moved and seconded. There's no opposition. It can only get worse. You're in the best possible position right now.
I just have 15 brief minutes. So, as Jana laid it out just perfectly, the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors is so thankful to our assemblymen for bringing this forward. This is very exciting for them. We just can't express to you, this is jobs. This is not a common occurrence up there. We urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you.
My name is Peter Tittman. I work with the University of California, Berkeley at the Center for Forestry. Thanks, Chairman Gatto and committee members, for hearing our testimony today, and thanks to Dr. Wood for having us here. I'll just abbreviate my 3 pages of comments to something.
I noticed those pages of comments.
I apologize. I'm new to this. I think the critical points here are I've been working in my capacity with the university in a technical support role with community organizations, small businesses all over the state that are looking at SB 1122 as an opportunity to build local economic development, as well as address some of the issues around forest management and forest health, fire risk in the state. This change dramatically affects project development, the economics of project development around SB 1122. As Jana mentioned, dropping the capital requirements for construction of biomass generators by close to 50%, 100%. Let me see some of the other key points here. I think what this allows is for both the aggregate cost of this program to ratepayers to come down, because there'll be fewer individual facilities connecting to the grid. Under the existing biomat program, because of the constraint on a 3-megawatt generator, individual facilities will be less that come onto the grid. There'll be more of them. There'll be higher interconnection costs. In addition, as Jana mentioned, the capital cost for construction is much higher at 3 megawatts. So in aggregate, the ratepayer will pay less for the biomat program under this amendment. I think that's essentially all I had to say.
Terrific. Thank you. We really do appreciate you being here, and I can assure you we've thoroughly analyzed this bill, and it's very good policy, and we think it's terrific service to your district. So thank you. Let's go to public comment and support.
My name is Michael Minkler. I'm general manager of the Utica Water and Power Authority in Angels Camp, Calaveras County, and I to support the policy behind this bill. But what I would like to see is that it be available to a small number of small hydro facilities that also produce renewable energy credits that fit within that same category. Nameplate rating greater than 3 megawatts. But willing and able and capable of limiting their generation to 3 megawatts. Currently, this bill is limited to biomass generators. I think the same policy reasons behind this bill would apply to the small hydro facilities that I manage, and my preference would be to see it included in this bill. But I'm also working with Assemblyman Bigelow's office, represents my district, in some other possible options. But just wanted to let the committee know that there's a small handful of small hydro facilities out there that could also greatly benefit from this type of policy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Valerie Terrell of Lajos with Pacific Gas and Electric Company, testifying, I guess, as neutral because we are removing our opposition with the amendments proposed by the committee. And as the bill is proposed to be amended, we think that's appropriate to limit it to the SB 1122 world for many of the reasons that the author stated. So I want to thank the author and his staff and you and your staff for working with us on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any witnesses in opposition? Public comment in opposition? Seeing none. Questions or comments from the panel? Yep, Mr. Obernolte.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Wood, thank you for bringing the bill forward. I had a quick question. If the maximum operating capacity of the renewable generation is 3 megawatts, what's the rationale in limiting the nameplate generating capacity to 5 megawatts? In other words, why do we even care if the maximum is 3 megawatts? Why would we even care if it had a higher nameplate generating capacity?
Well, I think for us, we're looking at the availability of 5 megawatt generators. That's probably one of the limiting factors, and the fact that the 5 megawatt generators are actually less expensive than the 3 megawatt ones. So, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Although the larger the generator, the larger the footprint, and probably far exceeds the needs of the business itself. So, if you have a business, in particular the one we're talking about here, if you can export 3 megawatts and you can use 2 megawatts on site, that's a win for everyone. Mm-hmm. See. You may not be able, if you had 7 or 10, that doesn't necessarily help you, and the cost goes way up.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks.
Mr. Dally. Oh, question answered. Okay. Any other questions or comments from the panel? Bill has been moved and seconded. Would you like to close?
Respectfully ask for your aye vote, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended in the committee analysis to the Assembly floor. Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Patterson?
Aye.
Patterson, aye. Burke?
Aye.
Burke, aye. Chavez?
Aye.
Chavez, aye. Dally?
Aye.
Dally, aye. Eggman? Christina Garcia?
Aye.
Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia?
Aye.
Eduardo Garcia, aye. Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Roger Hernandez? Obernolte?
Aye.
Obernolte, aye. Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago? Ting? Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye.
The bill has passed. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair.
Okay, I want to take a moment and welcome the 2 new members we have to this committee. First is Mr. Rocky Chavez, and next is the pride of the Coachella Valley, Mr. Eduardo Garcia. So welcome, gentlemen. And also, we just established a quorum a little bit ago, and now we need a motion on the consent calendar. So do I have a motion? Consent calendar has been moved and seconded, Madam Secretary. And this is AB 1564, 1651, and 1903. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Patterson?
Aye.
Patterson, aye. Burke? Chavez?
Aye.
Chavez, aye. Dally?
Aye.
Dally, aye. Eggman? Christina Garcia?
Aye.
Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia?
Aye.
Eduardo Garcia, aye. Hadley?
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Roger Hernandez? Obernolte?
Aye.
Obernolte, aye. Quirk?
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago? Ting? Williams?
Aye.
Williams, aye.
Okay, we are waiting for authors. We still need to hear AB 2453. Oh yeah, okay. And we heard one motion. We heard one bill before we had a quorum, and that was AB 1564, Doss Williams. Do I have a motion on 1564? Oh, I'm sorry. No, that was 2168 by Doss Williams. Do I have a motion on 2168?
So moved.
Great. Bill has been moved and seconded. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass as amended in the committee analysis and re-refer to the Appropriations Committee. Gatto?
Aye.
Gatto, aye. Patterson?
Aye.
Patterson, aye. Burke? Chavez?
Aye.
Chavez, aye. Dally?
Aye.
Dally, aye. Eggman? Christina Garcia. Aye. Christina Garcia, aye. Eduardo Garcia. Aye. Eduardo Garcia, aye. Hadley. Roger Hernandez. Obernolte.
Aye.
Hadley, aye. Obernolte.
Aye.
Aye. Quirk.
Aye.
Quirk, aye. Santiago. Ting. Williams. Aye. Williams, aye.
All right, 2168 Williams has passed, and now we're going to go to Mr. Rodriguez, who's going to present to us Assembly Bill 2453. Welcome, Mr. Rodriguez.